Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com. And today I wanted to regroup with you guys, talk Chiefs, since I haven't really this week, since I reviewed the Chiefs-Bengals game, which was a hard game to watch and a hard one to talk about. It definitely sucked to see us lose like that. But I want to discuss it today once again and why it might be a bit of a good thing that they lost to the Bengals. Now, I'm not trying to justify a loss and saying that a loss is a good thing, but I think there is silver lining to be found in this game. And no surprise, I did write about this on Arrowhead Addict, so some of you may have seen that already or read that or kind of get what I'm about to talk about already. But losing to Cincinnati was definitely a gut punch loss that kind of brought fans back to reality, fans and the team, really. I think it reminded the team and the fans, because I did see a lot of cockiness from Chiefs fans all around before this game, which, you know, I don't blame you guys for being confident in the team. They were dominant during their 8-game win streak, but I think it gave some people a little bit of a false sense of invincibility. And there's not really a ton of shame in losing to the Bengals. They're a good team, so it's not a bad loss. It's not a season derailing type of loss either, but it's still certainly one you would have liked to have won. The only part that really sucks is that they no longer have the 1 seed because of this game. Now the Tennessee Titans hold it, because the Tennessee Titans and the Chiefs both have the same record, but as you guys remember, the Titans rolled the Chiefs earlier in the season, so they own the tiebreaker. And in all honesty, the Chiefs were lucky to even have the 1 seed for as long as they did in the first place. I mean, they started off the season 3-4. They gave themselves a thin margin for error to the point where they had to run the table in order to earn the 1 seed back, right? And that was always a big ask. Many people, including myself, thought the 1 seed was completely out of play at one point. So it isn't like this team was totally unprepared for the idea that they might not be the 1 seed in the playoffs. Despite not having the 1 seed, though, and likely not getting it back, this loss shouldn't change the odds of the Chiefs winning the AFC or making it back to the Super Bowl. Fans can actually draw parallels between this most recent Bengals loss and the 2019 Week 10 loss to the Tennessee Titans. If you guys can remember all the way back and remember correctly, in 2019, the Chiefs actually, these two seasons, 2021 and 2019, are actually pretty similar. In 2019, the Chiefs started out very rough, mostly due to injuries and poor defensive play. They did not get off to a good start at the beginning of the year. They were 6-4 at one point. No one really saw them as like a true Super Bowl contender, or at least people were questioning that. But then the defense started to turn a corner, even despite Patrick Mahomes dislocating his kneecap against the Broncos and being out for a few weeks. The team seemed to start playing better. And then Mahomes makes his return, and everyone thinks that, they're just going to go off against the Titans. And then they have a complete meltdown loss where everything that hurt them earlier in the season, bad defense, bad coaching, all that stuff, it came back to bite them in that game. They lost 35-32, and the game ended on a blocked Harrison Butker field goal attempt where the Titans player perfectly predicted the cadence due to Dave Toub's inability to change things up on special teams, but you get my point. It was a terrible and indefensible loss that made you question whether or not the Chiefs were Super Bowl contenders. Yet, after that game, they went on to never lose again that season. They took home the Lombardi Trophy and claimed Super Bowl LIV. I think a similar vibe surrounds this Bengals game. Yeah, it's a little bit later in the year compared to that Titans game, because that was only in Week 10. We're in Week 17. But it definitely strikes me, and I think it strikes a lot of other fans, as that final gut punch loss, reality check that this team needed right before the playoffs. Things were coming easy for them during that dominant 8-game win streak. And this is a little bit of a reminder that they can lose to decent competition. And I think you'd almost rather them have another bump in the road in their way to the Super Bowl than have everything come super easy. And then that way they won't get caught off guard later in the playoffs. Like if they are to play the Bengals again, which is entirely possible that matchup happens once again in the postseason. because they really did seem to lack an urgency in this Bengals game. They just kind of rolled out in the second half, not changing much, seemed to take the foot off the gas a little bit. If you go back and watch that Titans game, which I did, I think you could say a lot of the same. And just a complete meltdown on defense, which is also what happened against Cincinnati. They gave up 34 points. But yeah, now they're the 2 seed. But also, if you remember, in 2019, the Chiefs were the 2 seed when they won the Super Bowl. Of course, the big difference now is that the 2nd seed doesn't get a bye week under the new playoff format. But it's still advantageous being a 2 seed, and I also think the pressure of being the 1st seed can actually be a disadvantage at times. And now maybe that's me trying a little bit too hard to find reasons to say we didn't really need the 1 seed. And I still don't think we need the 1 seed. But here's the thing. The Chiefs still have home field advantage as a 2nd seed for every single scenario besides a game where they face the 1st seed, which is the Titans. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't fear the Titans. I think I could very easily see the Chiefs going in and winning in Tennessee in a playoff game. Patrick Mahomes, I'll take him over Ryan Tannehill. And I actually think Mike Vrabel has outcoached Andy Reid in a lot of their matchups, but I do think the team is playing well enough to where that can kind of cancel out. And also, the Chiefs played the Titans earlier this year, so they have stuff to look back on from that game and say, hey, we can do this differently because when we tried that last time, it didn't work. And same thing could be said for the Bengals, which is also why I think a loss against the Bengals isn't entirely a bad thing because they have takeaways from that game that they can use to get better, you know? I really do think there's a similar dynamic between this game and that 2019 Tennessee Titans loss. It's going to have to be the case if the Chiefs want to get back to the Super Bowl. Like I said, I can understand why some people think maybe that's a little bit corny or just whatever, but I'm just looking for silver lining here, guys, and I do think there's a little bit of weight to this, and I do think that there's a little bit of weight to teams facing adversity before they hit the playoffs, because we saw in 2020 when the Chiefs basically rolled through the entire regular season, the first time they faced adversity in the playoffs in the Super Bowl when their offensive line was banged up. They did not respond well. They had no answer for the Bucs. They didn't really adjust. Now you're kind of getting that season where there's bumps in the road and the team learns from it and they take those losses to heart. I think they're going to come out firing next week or this weekend against the Denver Broncos, and I think they're going to be a team that no one in the playoffs really wants to face. I still have full confidence in the Chiefs despite their loss to the Bengals. I think maybe they almost needed this loss a little bit. But I do want to hear from you guys, whether you agree, disagree with me, or if you have any of your own thoughts to share, would love to hear it. But all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. But I'll see you in the next one.